Aircraft using a push-pull engine configuration had been used successfully as early as before the First World War. However, for various reasons, the concept never really caught on, and it remained somewhat uncommon. One of the more successful uses of the engine arrangement was in the Dornier flying boats during the 1920s and 30s that used high-mounted push-pull engine setups to generally pretty good results. It seemed natural then that during Germany's rearmament before World War II, that Dornier would use this concept again, and several test designs were built as proof of concepts to demonstrate that it would still work with more modern aircraft. When the war broke out, these designs were shelved by the German leadership, as it was believed that they were just going to take too long to develop into operational aircraft, but Dornier wasn't about to give up yet. In 1942, when the RLM issued one of their many requests for high-speed bombers, Dornier tried again and submitted the P-231. This was a radical departure from his previous designs, and used a plus-shaped tail along with the push-pull engine configuration, plus having an internal bomb bay. After some heavy political infighting, the original request was cancelled, but the German leadership liked Dornier's design and asked him to convert it into a multi-role fighter bomber, similar to the Bf-110. The plane was significantly redesigned to this new role, and the first prototype took off in late 1943. Now, as is common for unconventional designs, there ended up being a lot of problems. However, the flight performance was pretty strong, and it vindicated further work on the new plane, which by now was designated Do-335 File, which means arrow. The worsening situation for Germany significantly impacted the project, with fierce competition for resources and production facilities causing many delays. Even with higher priority, only between 15 and 20 were built according to most sources. The plane never saw any combat, and pre-production airframes only had one or two fleeting encounters with Allied aircraft, and just used their high speed to escape. What we're looking at in Warthunder is the Do-335 A-1, a strike aircraft in rank 3 of the German air tree at battle rating 4.3. This plane's primary armament is a very powerful set of nose-mounted cannons. It carries a 30mm Mk-103 cannon and two more 15mm MG-141 cannons, all mounted right on the center line. The ammo selections for both are excellent, with a combination of very powerful Minengeschoss rounds for destroying aircraft and solid armored targets ammo with pretty deep penetration. Using the armored targets belt will let you take out medium tanks with a few solid hits. For loadouts, the Do-335A1 gets 3 presets carrying SC-500 and SC-250 bombs, mainly the SC-500 in its internal bomb bay, and/or SC-250s out under the wings. Unfortunately, no optical bomb sight or anything, so all of your drops are going to be blind. The flight performance of this plane is pretty unusual, which you probably expected from such an unusual design. First, let's get the obvious out of the way. This thing is fast. It has a better top-end speed than basically anything else in its BR range, and in a flat chase at most altitudes, it can escape, or catch, anything it goes up against. Now, with that said, the speed differential is much higher at higher altitudes. Above 4,000 meters or so, this thing is almost untouchable. Down at treetop level, some single-engine fighters have enough acceleration to keep pace with or even briefly overtake the 335, so you've got to try and plan your engagements pretty carefully. Now, the acceleration is a bit skewed towards the medium end of the power curve, starting off a little sluggish and waning off once you get above 650 kilometers an hour. But at medium speeds, it accelerates quite well, and that might surprise some opponents. The rate of climb, however, is pretty average, and despite the plane's impressive top-end speed, it really doesn't climb any better than the planes it goes up against. Now, this brings us to the plane's maneuverability and combat agility, or really its lack thereof. Simply put, the Do-335 just doesn't maneuver very well. It's got a weird center of gravity and a fair amount of instability during basically any maneuver. The turn performance is roughly on par with other twin-engine light bombers, and the plane simply can't keep pace with single-engine fighters in a conventional dogfight. You get one, singular tense, good energy turn out of the 335 if you're at a high enough speed at medium altitude. But past that, I really wouldn't expect much. Things get even worse with a bomb load, so if you're gonna try and do some air combat, make sure to either leave the bombs at home or drop them before you go in. Flying this plane out into air battles involves some pretty major trade-offs. I want to remind you before I say anything else that this plane is a strike aircraft and wasn't really ever intended to be a dogfighter. Now, even the dedicated interceptor version wasn't really intended to get into twisting turn fights with P-51s and stuff, so just a reminder that if you're expecting this plane to be some epic dogfighter because of old documentaries from the 1990s and stuff, you're gonna be let down. It's not. Using this for air combat requires slow-paced positioning tactics, along with boom and zoom attacks that keep your energy up whenever possible. I'm showing some variations in the gameplay just to keep things interesting in the video, but I just want to stress that if you want to be successful in air combat with this, you're going to need to use the plane's speed and firepower more than anything else. Fly in as fast as you can, take your shot, and hit or miss, run away until you have enough distance to turn around for another pass. It has a playstyle kinda like a lot of jet interceptors like the F-104 or Tornado, but down in the prop tiers. Now, with that said, the forward firepower on this plane is impressive, and if people are dumb enough to take a head-on with you, it's probably going to end badly for them. Don't be afraid to run from more maneuverable opponents, and sometimes it's actually pretty important to do so, because hits to the rear can cause problems for the second engine, so you're going to need to keep your distance up whenever somebody wants to chase you. In terms of ground attack and close air support, the plane's cannons actually get some strong ammo belts that can pop medium tanks from a good angle, and even though the guns aren't super accurate, it can sometimes be easier to get cannon hits than bomb hits without any kind of bomb sight or anything, especially for the internally carried SC-500. Generally speaking though, this is a really good plane for ground attack. Visually, this is a pretty distinct and unusual looking aircraft, and the 3D model is quite well done. No custom skins or anything, but you can find some on Warthunder Live if you want to spice things up a bit. Landing this plane is really easy. It's got tricycle landing gear that can deploy around 275 kilometers an hour, and you can drop landing flaps at the same speed. No risk of nosing over, so you can just lock up the brakes immediately after landing. The cockpit on the Do-335 is kinda weird, and the forward view is heavily obstructed, with the canopy bracing getting in the way more than you might think it should. Reading the instruments was fine, but honestly, I really didn't like this cockpit at all. To close out on the Do-335 A-1. This plane has excellent forward firepower, it's crazy fast, it gets an air spawn in RB, and it's very strong in close air support. However, it's just not very maneuverable, and it doesn't get any kind of bomb sight. The final verdict on the Do-335 A-1 is that this plane has a fairly unique playstyle for its BR. If you like somewhat slow-paced boom and zoom combat, or high-speed ground strikes, this might actually be a really great plane for you to look at. If you're looking for a hotshot dogfighter, this ain't it. As always, thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, check out this other one.